The Chinese military has issued another threat to the United States, this time in response to U.S. missile plans in Japan as China becomes increasingly hostile. Also, Chinese people are now voicing disagreement with authorities when it comes to the official narrative on the U.S. ban of WeChat. And a leaked internal CCP report that was obtained by the Epoch Times shows that Communist Party leader Xi Jinping was lied to by close to 100 officials in his orders to destroy illegal villas with deep significance. I'll be going in depth into this. Welcome back, everyone. First off, some breaking news. The Chinese military has issued a warning to the United States, saying that if the U.S. moves forward with its plans to deploy medium-range missiles in Japan, the CCP will, quote, resolutely counter. The threat was issued by Wu Qian, director of the CCP's Ministry of National Defense News Agency, in an August 27th post to the agency's official Weibo page. And now this happened as the United States and Japan are deepening their defense relationship. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who actually just announced he's going to resign due to health problems, had just met as well with the head of the new U.S. Space Force the same day the CCP issued its threat. The two countries are going to be working together in outer space through cooperation between Space Force and Japan's new Air Self-Defense Force Space Operations Squadron. Now, this Japanese defense program on space is currently focused on satellite security and was only recently created in May with about 20 members. It's set to become fully operational in 2023. Now, there have been some interesting shifts with Japan. Until very recently, Japan was a relatively non-military country. After World War II, it dismantled most of its defense programs. This began changing several years back, however, when the Chinese Communist Party began making incursions into Japanese territory around the Senkaku Islands. Japan changed its defense policy and began building offensive military programs. Japan is now looking to become one of the major players when it comes to defense and when it comes to U.S. alliances in that region to challenge the CCP. Meanwhile, in China, the Chinese Communist Party is viewing satellites as threats to its programs for information censorship. Local governments in China have begun issuing orders for people to remove satellite receivers from their homes. The CCP had previously banned these home satellite receivers back in 1993. But these low-cost receivers have become popular in rural parts of China where people use them to access TV channels, and where local governments never really fully enforce this ban. This is beginning to change, however, as Chinese people can use these satellites to access channels that carry information that is critical of the CCP. NTD News, for example, which broadcasts the show you're watching now, Crossroads, also broadcasts into China via satellite. Bitter Winter reports that the Chinese regime is giving orders right now to dismantle satellite receivers across the country and also block overseas television programs. And they're doing this under the banner of, quote, maintaining ideological safety. Bitter Winter published copies of documents that are being posted around China on this ban. It also noted that people who are refusing to go along with this ban and dismantle these satellites are being fined or being told they risk losing their pensions. CCP's state-run media has also been publishing propaganda, saying people need to destroy their satellite receivers in order to prevent things like, for example, lightning strikes, and to prevent injuries if equipment falls on people. They're also claiming that uncensored programs from outside China can harm minors. Now, the report notes in internal government communications saying the real reason behind the ban is that news from outside of China is unfavorable to the Chinese Communist Party, and the regime is now afraid that people inside China will hear the truth. In addition to this, the CCP is tightening its grip around ideology in China, including with freedom of belief and freedom of thought. State-run institutions in China have launched a new campaign to investigate the religious beliefs of employees in the country. And if people refuse to give up their faith, they risk losing their jobs. Bitter Winter notes that in Shandong, over 200 government-affiliated organizations held meetings to investigate the religious status of employees. And this extended as well to their spouses, to their parents, and to their children. The investigations have extended to hospitals as well, and even to schools, where beliefs of teachers and students are being investigated. The report quotes a primary school teacher in China who is a house Christian, one of the Christian groups that is banned by the CCP because the house Christians are not regulated under the centralized authority of the CCP. She said, quote, "The principal told me that all religious gatherings are banned. Even reading the Bible in small groups is not allowed." And the CCP is carrying out similar programs in Hong Kong around education, where school textbooks are now being censored to remove content that is deemed, quote, sensitive. Barron's reports that the censorship includes discussions on civil disobedience, photos of certain protest slogans, and names of some political parties. This is being done by the CCP under the narrative of, quote, sieving out the inaccurate parts from the past. Now, in relation to this, the Chinese Communist Party seems to be making harsher crackdowns both on religious belief and on ideology. You might remember a recent episode where we talked about this new Chinese Communist Party program that gives people cash rewards if they report on the religious activities of their neighbors. If people, for example, practice religious activities, including posting banners or handing out flyers or printing Bibles, they could be persecuted by the CCP, and the people who report on them will be rewarded by the CCP. This also comes as the Chinese Communist Party is launching a new Maoist purge, being done under the actual banner of being a Maoist purge. This purge is mainly targeting the law enforcement systems in China and the legal systems in China, but in the broader picture of this, we see the Chinese Communist Party cracking down across the country, bringing back Maoist-era policies when it comes to religious suppression, when it comes to ideological suppression, and when it comes to forcing different CCP members to fall in line with the party. Now, the CCP already had these things to an extent, but it's now taking a very hardline approach when it comes to enforcing these policies. Meanwhile, Chinese people are voicing disagreement with authorities when it comes to the official narrative on the US ban of WeChat, which is a popular Chinese social media app. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Zhao Lijian sent out a tweet saying that if the United States goes through with the WeChat ban, then, quote, there will be no reason why Chinese shall keep iPhone and Apple products. And ironically, his tweet was sent from an iPhone. Now, similar narratives have been carried by Western media, but Chinese netizens appear to disagree with this. The same day as the announcement, photos of the Apple store in China showed it was packed with people. Now, one netizen in China criticized the CCP spokesperson and stated that CCP officials can afford things like large villas in the United States and mistresses and so on, but believe the average Chinese people aren't even allowed to buy iPhones. They saw this as a slap in the face. This user also noted that Apple had brought jobs and wealth into China by manufacturing through Foxconn. Another netizen noted another angle on this, saying the move would only further break economic ties between China and the United States. Now, the situation also appears similar to what happened back in 2016. A Chinese technology company named China Zhejiang Binary Technology issued a patriotic notice to employees, saying it would give them subsidies if they replaced their Apple iPhones. This led to heated discussions in China. Some claimed that boycotting the iPhones would reduce the ability of the CCP to access the global economy. And they believed, for example, this was a breaking of the CCP from the global economy, very similar to the accusations being made now as well. And now for the broader stories for today. Now, first off, a leaked internal CCP report was obtained by the Epoch Times, and it shows that party leader Xi Jinping was lied to by close to 100 officials in his orders to destroy the illegal villas in the Qinling Mountains in Shaanxi, which are known in China as the, quote, Dragon Vein. I'll explain in a bit why this matters to Xi and also the deeper symbolism on this. But first, let's go into the case. CCP officials in Shaanxi Province built many luxury villas on the mountains over the past decade, and Xi has given instructions on multiple occasions to have these villas demolished, yet his orders have been repeatedly ignored. Then in 2018, Xi sent Xu Lingyi, the Deputy Secretary of the CCP Central Commission on Disciplinary Inspection, to the province to carry out investigations. This led to the demolition of the illegal villas and to the purge of several CCP officials. The 20,000-word document obtained by the Epoch Times details the internal reports on the incident from the Xi'an Qinling Office. And it shows that despite all the actions, Xi is still being deceived by local officials across all levels of government. According to the report, in April 2017, an ecological protection program was established, the Qinling Ecological Environmental Protection Grid. 1,973 workers were hired, 191,360 inspections were performed, and 7,404 problems were found and, quote, resolved with better results. This led to a domino effect of purging corrupt CCP officials and also led to the downfall of many party secretaries of the Qinling office. The mayor of Xi'an was also driven out of office. More recently, in February 2019, Yang Anding, the former party secretary of the Qinling Office in Xi'an, was removed from office, as well as He Hongxing, the first director of the Qinling Office, and Wang Chongling, the former deputy director of the Qinling Office. The purge later spread to officials elsewhere as well. As of the end of 2019, at least 20 officials above the bureau level in Shaanxi who were involved in the Qinling Villa case were also stripped of their positions. According to the leaked report, over 1,000 people in Xi'an alone were investigated due to the Qinling Villa incident. And it notes as well that even Zhao Leiji, the current secretary of the Central Commission for Disciplinary Inspection, was warned by Xi Jinping over this incident. This also tied to several high-profile arrests and trials, including that of former Shaanxi party boss Zhao Zhengyang, who was given a suspended death sentence in July for accepting more than $100 million in bribes, and also for his involvement in the CCP's officials ignoring Xi's orders to tear down these illegal villas in the Qinling Mountains. Now, some important points on this. In ancient China, these Qinling Mountains, which I mentioned before, were known as the, quote, dragon vein. They have deep symbolic meaning tied to feng shui. They were believed to directly impact the prosperity of the current leader in China. It was also believed that damaging or suppressing these dragon veins could harm the country's ruler. As Chinoscope notes, the CCP is an atheist regime, but Xi himself still believes in some concepts from feng shui and traditional Chinese culture. The area also had significance to Xi directly. His father started his CCP career in Shaanxi, and Xi stayed in the area for several years. These luxury villas that were built on these mountains were believed to damage or suppress the dragon vein, at least in this belief, and their construction was viewed as a direct blow to Xi. After Xi gave orders at least 6 times to demolish these villas and had his orders ignored by officials each time. Now, there's a few other points to this. This showed something significant, which is that many Chinese officials were not obeying Xi. And why would that be the case? Well, this ties to the factional battles in China. Xi Jinping and his faction do not control all of China. There are 2 main rival factions in China. One is the Xi faction, the other is the Jiang faction, under Jiang's men 2 leaders ago. And we also have as well now Li Keqiang, head of the State Council and also the party secretary. These are different factions within the CCP. Each of them controls different parts of the country. When it came to Xi trying to give orders to demolish these villas, his orders were ignored. Again, this ties to the different factional battles, and this one specifically was interpreted as a direct attack against Xi, given the significance of that region. Meanwhile, the CCP's Navy made headlines after it transformed a cargo ship into an instant helicopter carrier. This move was seen as both creative and possibly as a sign of desperation in the CCP's attempts to increase the size of its naval forces as it's facing increased pressure from countries in the South China Sea, including from the new Quad Alliance, which is the United States, Japan, Australia, and India, and also pressure from other countries as well, such as Vietnam. Now, when it comes to the ship being converted by the CCP into a helicopter carrier, this was again a freight ship. This shows something important, which is the Chinese Communist Party's use of dual-use technologies. For example, it has converted its Coast Guard ships into military ships. It can take different ships and repurpose them for these things. The Chinese Communist Party is known to do this as well sometimes. It may make, for example, business deals that say work on different parts that can be used as well for rocket parts, or used as well for weapon systems. The Chinese Communist Party's military, the People's Liberation Army, has many programs like this. And the CCP demonstrated with this as well, that its different fishing ships and its different, say, shipping vessels can be converted very easily for military purposes. And as the Chinese Communist Party is carrying out its military drills in the South China Sea and the Tibetan Plateau, its accompanying propaganda with this has been backfiring. Its military released several videos of these exercises that were meant to display its military power. But the video shows soldiers in the People's Liberation Army acting unprofessionally and doing things that in normal military protocol would be seen as kind of ridiculous. These have become the focus now for online ridicule and jokes. Chinese netizens pointed out several issues in these videos. In one video, CCP troops can be seen operating an automatic naval gun, and that the troops are seen standing right behind it, which in most militaries would be seen as a violation of basic safety procedures. In another video, it showed a helicopter landing on a ship. Many soldiers are seen standing on the deck around the helicopter, very close to its rotors. Another video showed the CCP troops in the Tibetan Plateau loading artillery shells by hand and firing at targets manually. Other scenes included officers scrolling on the ground and manually calculating and mapping targets using pen and paper. Now, when it comes to this, the Chinese military's capabilities are being called out and questioned on many different fronts. For example, it recently degraded its J-20 fifth-generation fighter jet to a fourth-generation fighter jet, admitting it does not have fifth-generation technologies in it. There was also the video, for example, of this Chinese armored personnel carrier sinking into a river. These are images that are raising questions on how capable the Chinese military actually is. And also these new videos are showing not just with the equipment, but in training as well, whether China has a capable military fighting force. Also, the Trump administration recently put bans on Chinese social media apps TikTok and WeChat, and U.S. tech companies are now worried about reciprocal bans. Does this impact free trade, considering that Chinese companies often work by their own rules? To answer this question, I recently had the pleasure of interviewing David McIntosh. He's president of Club for Growth, which is an advocate for economic liberty. Hey, David McIntosh, it's great having you on Crossroads.
Likewise, good to be with you today.
Now, first off, would you consider the bans on TikTok and WeChat blows to economic liberty?
I think we've got to be very careful when the governments start limiting trade like that. And this is a service that Americans use. Now, they may have had a national security justification, but I think we should be careful to let freedom really blossom and apps developed in different countries be bought and used by Americans, and apps that we develop be sold overseas. Now, one thing, though, that is critical is we have to really push the Chinese to acknowledge property rights, intellectual property rights in this case, of apps, so they're not stealing components of those apps from other companies and then turning around and reselling it. So that's something where you've got to defend the system of property rights and liberty in order to have real equitable free trade.
I see. Now, some of the big concerns with TikTok and WeChat are whether these apps could be used by the CCP to spy on Americans, and also how the apps could be used by Chinese authorities for things like propaganda and other purposes. This brings up difficult questions on how the U.S. should deal with companies that can be used by totalitarian governments for ulterior motives. Now, what are your views when it comes to how the United States should navigate the issues when it comes to allowing Chinese companies into our markets?
Yeah, I think that trade ends up actually enhancing national security. If you're trading with another country, you're less likely to have things explode and go to a hot war if you've got a trade and economic competition going on. So we've got to be very careful on limiting anything like that. My answer to the problem of spying is just disclose, make them meet the requirements that other companies have of disclose what they're going to do with the information they get from people, and then Americans can make their choice. We're seeing a lot of Americans would choose not to use like a Huawei phone when they go over to Europe because of the same concern. But that's because they know about it, right? That someone could be listening in. If the information's disclosed, then people can make their own choice.
I see. Now, is there anything else I'd like to say, or are there any points you feel we missed you'd like to touch on?
I want to loop back to one in particular. We have to push the Chinese, and I even understand how President Trump uses tariffs to do this, to come to the negotiating table with an acceptance of the fundamentals of free markets. If they want the benefits of free trade, then they also have to accept that we're going to protect property rights, we're going to honor contracts, because those are essential to having free markets in their country and in our country. In the end, it will benefit the Chinese as much as it benefits us when they respect property rights. But right now, they're not used to that. They still have the legacy communist notion of property, that it's really nobody's property, it's owned by the collective and the Communist Party. So we're going to have to push over the years and really insist and kind of force them, if they want to trade with free market countries, to give up that communist view of property and accept a real free market private ownership of property.
Now, the extended version of this interview is available on Patreon, so if you want to see it, please join us on Patreon. Now, with that said, folks, we're again broadcasting 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. If you haven't already, also, please join us on Patreon. You can find the link to that in the description below. Again, really need your support. Also, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps this channel grow. And again, if you want to go the extra mile, please tell your friend or family member about Crossroads. Now, with that said, please take care of yourselves, stay healthy, and stay free.